Committee meeting of September 29th. Roll call, just let everybody know who's here.
Present Katie Dugan.
Present Rob Casemeyer.
Present Ralph Dormisser.
Present Kathy Forrest.
Present Susan Franklin. Okay. Okay, so first thing on the agenda tonight is sewer. Do we have the
We should promote
presenters?
I think it's Brian Joyce. He's
Brian, yes,
showing
Brian's
up.
here. Michelle, do you want me to promote Brian or are you handling that?
I've got him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your choice.
Hey, Brian.
It's also going to be a psalm.
Good
Hi,
evening,
Brian.
everyone. Can you hear me
Are
okay?
you-
Yep. All good.
How's everyone doing?
We're great. How about you?
Good. So we talking about DPW or sewer?
Sewer is first up.
Yeah, I don't know if I wasn't able to touch base with Bill McGowan or Paul Kears. I don't know if they're joining, but I'll just get going. So the article for a special town meeting for the sewer is to cover the match for an asset management program grant the town was awarded from the state. The proposal, I think you guys received it forwarded along, it's at phase 2. So phase 1 was a previous grant a year and a half ago we were awarded, and that assessed all of the equipment and the entirety of the wastewater treatment plant. On October 1st, this Wednesday at the Sewer Commission meeting, if any of you are interested, you can join in on Zoom. You can watch the presentation for that, the findings on that AMP2 grant done by Woodard and Curran. So what the AMP1 grant. The AMP1 grant, what it did is it categorized all the equipment in the sewer treatment plant. It did a risk analysis for it, a condition assessment, and basically a costs basis on that. So it's going to be a capital planning document for the sewer department going forward. For the phase 2, which we're talking about tonight, is a grant to go out beyond the wastewater treatment plant into the collection system and do an asset inventory of all of the sewerage piping and the gravity low pressure force mains, sewer manholes, pump stations, air valves, and do a condition assessment of those and perform again a risk analysis and kind of a basis for capital planning and improvements in the collection system. So with these two, we should have a good handle on the entirety of the sewer system. So right now, our GIS system, which is kind of maps our sewer piping, we have a gap. The North Cohasset is mapped, and then the original sewer piping around the downtown area is mapped, but the Little Harbor, which connects the two of them, is not mapped. We obviously have plans of this and we know where the stuff is, but kind of in an emergency and really just for general operations, it's handy to look at whether it's water distribution map or your sewer collection map. And if you have an issue, a break or something, you can see, all right, we have a connection here or a house or a valve. So we're kind of missing that component in the middle around Little Harbor. And this grant will also map out that on our GIS system, which is just a valuable operations tool. As far as the figures for funding, the total project is 200,000. The town's grant amount is 120,000. The town match, which is for the appropriation, is 72,000, and in-kind service, which is labor from staff, is 8,000. So that 120,000 grant, 72,000 town match, and the in-kind service of 8 brings us to a total of 200,000. So that's really the nuts and bolts of this article. Questions?
So Brian, both of these phases combined then will enable the town to come up with a long-term plan for maintaining or
Yeah,
improving the
it's-
system.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these are like the capital plan is a dynamic document, but right now this will categorize where we are right now and give us condition assessment of everything. You know, we can plan our capital improvements going out. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at the wastewater treatment plant assessment, but it's pretty comprehensive. And if you have a liaison for the sewer department, I'd suggest if you could dial in on Wednesday morning and watch the presentation. I think it'll be helpful.
So this is going to take approximately 2 years to go through this process for phase two?
Phase two schedule. I don't think it's quite that long.
I think in the schedule, it said December 2025 through October 2026 was the anticipated data completion, so maybe report.
Oh, you're right. It does say that.
Yeah.
Year.
Yeah, so we have sewer asset inventory December 2025, field inventory data collection in the spring, April, risk analysis July, and then the deliverable would be this time next year.
Okay.
I have a question on it. The
Yes.
water department found when we found a hydrodynamic modeling to be quite effective. Is that not effective with sewer? Or I was surprised that you weren't doing that, to be honest with you.
So yeah, so similar to the water department, I mean, water is all pressurized. The sewer we have partial pressurized and partial gravity. But
Right.
you know, the distribution map for the water system is it's valuable in really just operations and knowing if you have a leak, where your shutdowns might be. We have that data on plans in the sewer department, but we don't have it schematically on a GIS system. And there is no, hydraulic model per se, like you would get in a water distribution system, because we're a collection of, we have low pressure force mains, we have a little bit of higher pressure force mains and gravity systems, and they're segmented in where we send some of it towards Hull and some of it towards Cohasset, and we actually have operational flexibility where we can decide how much we want to send each way. But there is no hydraulic model like you would have on a water system, sewer.
I mean, I sort of took this as a necessary next step in terms of like phase one got you the plant. And this phase two is going to get you everything that's in the streets or in a pumping station. So it sort of completes the total view. So without phase two, we're not really able to plan effectively. So that was my take on it.
Yep. Yeah. So with both of these phases, we'll have the entirety of the sewer system kind of documented and be able to plan where we should go from there.
And thank you for getting us the retained earnings figures. I know that it's an estimate, and Beth Mosley, is our new town accountant, had estimated it at $1 million. She couldn't give us a firm number yet because they haven't finished all the retained earnings or free cash flow calculations that are due to the state. But I'll take her estimate to the bank just based on what I've seen to date. So I think we at least have a sense of like what the retained earnings balance is for sewer that we're going to be appropriating or voting to appropriate 72,000 from.
Right.
Just a quick one, Brian. I assume that you only go as far as the for example, the pressure pump. You do not go to the actual homes where you've got gravity feeds down to those pressure pumps. You don't touch that. That will not show, right?
It will not show. I mean, it will show on our schematic collection system map. You bring up a good point. So we have, like I said, several different pressure zones. We have 9 town-owned pump stations, which are basically gravity pipes collect to centralized pump stations, and those pump stations pump over the wastewater treatment plant. Those are generally in around the high school area and up over the hillsides there. the Little Harbor and also North Cohasset are low pressure household grinder pumps. So there is no centralized pump station that the town owns. It's all individual residential pumps, and those residential pumps collectively provide the motive force to push the sewage, to where it needs to go. But no, it's really going to stop at the, they'll show them schematically at the houses, and you'll show the curb stop, and then the piping and valving, air valves and things, blow offs, things of that nature. But
I think we're losing
it's
you.
not really part of the town ownership.
It's sort of like the equivalent on the water, which is, wherever the shut off is in the street, from there to the house is the homeowner now, in North Cohasset and in Little Harbor, in terms of the gravity or the grinder pumps.
Grinder pump.
We all own them now.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions on this?
I'm good.
All set.
I'm all set.
Also,
All right.
So-
We're gonna go
Vote
for a
to
vote. if we could.
recommend.
oh my God.
Do we want to vote to recommend?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay,
Yep.
anyone want to put in a motion?
I'll make a motion to fund $72,000 from the sewer retained earnings for the Phase 2 asset management plan grant match.
Second,
Okay. Vote,
Aye.
Rob,
Katie Dugan,
Katie,
Mark Gormitzer, aye.
Aye, Rob Casemar.
Kathy Forrest, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye. Great.
Great, thank you.
There you go. All right, so next on the agenda is,
From sewage
The
to drainage.
right, okay, Brian,
So this was not on our long-term capital plan. It was kind of an unforeseen condition. We were actually going to go to advisory for an emergency fund, but the timing of the failure recently of the floor trench drains in the DPW garage allowed us to go to special town meeting. So that's why we were before the capital budget committee. So since our last meeting, we talked about what they were. It's about 50 linear feet in the lower garage where the larger heavy equipment is, and then the upper garage has about 30 linear feet. I sent a video and some pictures around of the upper garage. The lower garage is in failure in a few spots. In the upper garage, you could see that I could pick off the metal with 2 fingers. It's really disintegrating. So the question last week was, can you get 6 months or 6 years out of it? I think we're closer to the 6 months. I mean, you could probably get a year or so out of it, but it's the failure of the lower garage happened very quickly, and they're all starting to go apart. So it would probably be the same type of, the way it would go in the upper garage. And
Well,
if
thank
you
you
didn't
for-
see that video, I could probably play it.
No, you showed it, didn't you? Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sending the video. We saw it.
Yeah, I saw the video. It's never good when your metal flakes off in your hand.
Like
Right.
Weetabix.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the question had been whether we could postpone it, and the answer is no. And so the ask, just to clarify, Brian, is $42,332 for both the upper and the lower trench drains.
That's correct.
correct. Does anyone have any further questions or comments, or are we ready to vote on this?
All set.
Vote.
All set, okay,
I'll make a motion to vote to approve the DPW trench drains for $42,332 out of the capital stabilization fund.
Second,
I, Katie Dugan.
I, Rob Casemeyer.
Art Omitzer, aye.
Kathy Forrest, I.
Susan Franklin, I.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you, Brian.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Okay.
I just have to turn this for a second.
All right, so school stabilization roll forward.
And we're gonna promote some, Sarah and some school people.
We're doing.
So Corey promoted, not Corey. And Jen Lusky,
Yes. And Nick. And James, let's promote them now. They're gonna join in on.
I know. Give me one second, I just want to pull that file that you asked.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, thanks for
How are
having
you?
us.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. We also have Molly Paris might be joining us. She's from the design firm, so if you see her come through and can promote her as a panelist, that'd be great too.
Okay, that'd be great. So the first thing we're gonna do is just quickly review the school stabilization roll forward, which has been distributed to all of capital budget. Just so that everybody's aware, our current balance on the school stabilization fund is $2.6 million. We ended the year FY 25 with a balance of 1.085 million, and that was after some great utilization of the stabilization fund in the prior year to fund the engineering fire alarm study, Deer Hill tile, and ultimately the installation of the middle high school fire alarm and the beginning of the feasibility process with the MSBA for the Joseph Osgood roof. So out of the fund prior to the beginning of this fiscal year, we had spent $2 million on 3 projects. So we ended the year with a $1.1 million balance. The select board took a vote just recently on September 16th to increase the tax levy by 2.5%. We're now going to have another $1.5 million added into the school stabilization fund, leaving us with a balance currently of $2.6 million. So that's our balance. We obviously are going to talk tonight about utilizing that balance and putting it to work for the Joseph Osgood project. Next year, we'll be raising another 1.5 plus 2.5%. So we'll have another $1.5 million available to vote out should we choose to do that. So the roll forward shows us with a positive balance after both the appropriation for the Joseph Osgood project. Sorry, let me restate this. So the roll forward shows that at June 30th, 2027, we'll have a positive balance of roughly $250,000 available after fully paying for the Joseph Osgood roof. So between now and the end of fiscal 27, we will be utilizing all of the balances, our current 2.6 plus the forward-looking $1.5 million in order to pay for the Joseph Osgood project as it's currently scoped and projected. So that's just sort of the update there in terms of what the roll forward looks like.
Great, Katie. Thank you.
How come you don't show the extra 2.5% that they actually attach to it?
It is in there. So the original tax levy was 1.5. The
Yeah.
next tax levy was 1,537,500.
Okay.
And then there's another 2.5 on that. So the next year is 1,575, 938. So you're
Okay.
getting, I mean, every 2.5% matters, as we know, on capital stabilization, but in terms of the increase, you're gonna go from 1.5 million where we started up to, 1.575. So we're getting $75,000 more
I understand.
after 2 years of doing
That's what I
this.
thought.
Yeah, no. the
I
2.5
just mentioned it because I think to a lot of people, that's a surprise.
Yes,
Yeah.
the
definitely.
2.5% doesn't
It's-
skyrocket the fund.
Well, no, that it's a tax.
Yeah.
And it's a direct tax on the people.
Yeah.
And they weren't aware of that. Yeah, even when that was promoted, it wasn't clear. So anyway,
Yeah, we're annually revoting that
I know that. I
debt
know that.
appropriation.
I know
It's
that.
good clarification.
Okay, so we're going to first review the core program, get an update on that.
Yeah, so I think most folks are aware, but if not, that the school district has been submitting a statement of interest to the MSBA as a core program possibility for both the middle school and the high school as facilities. We rewrote the statement of interest this year. This was our 5th submission. And we also completed in the last school year a feasibility study. And that feasibility study was attached to our statement of interest that went in April. The MSBA, when they get all of their statements of interest, they review all of them and they make decisions. They either dismiss outright a statement of interest, they may consider a school or a district if they have seen that district recently. And they may also choose to do a senior study in a district to get more information. And so maybe 2 years ago, the MSBA came and did a visit in Cohasset at the middle and the high school, but they came to do another senior study in September. The statement of interest that they're really focused on is the high school because we have to submit 2 separate statements of interest, one for the middle school, one for the high school, though there is an acknowledgement and an awareness that we are actually one facility. All of our systems, all of our structures are one. You can't separate them by school. They brought 3 MSBA officials with them and 2 architects. They met with myself, Sue Owen, Nick, Principal Scott Belletti, who you probably have not met yet. He's our new middle school principal. Craig McClellan, Chris Senior, and Michelle Leary. They asked questions about our statement of interest, the building, our academic programming, our strategic plan, and then we went on a tour of the building. On the tour, they looked at all of our systems, our facility, our examples of learning, and they shared with us that this year they've received 27 core project SOIs from 21 districts. We were, of course, one of the 21 districts with 2 projects. And they were visiting 14 schools to do senior studies while also considering another 3 projects. We left that meeting feeling like it was a successful visit. Their board meeting where they will vote to bring schools into their process is December 12th. We anticipate that we will hear before that, probably around Thanksgiving or the very beginning of December, if we will be invited to that board meeting as a potential school. So we are still very much in the waiting phase and looking forward to hear back from them in November, early December. In the meantime, they have shared with us the process for if we do get invited in. They have a wonderful website if anyone's interested where you can see exactly what happens. The good and the bad of the MSBA is that it is a highly, highly structured process. There is nothing that is up for us to decide what we want to do or how we want to do it. We follow their rules. And so if we get invited in, we get invited into the eligibility period. It's module 1. There's deadlines for us just about every 30 days for what we need to accomplish. And we have 270 days to get through that phase one. At the end of phase one, we go to their board meeting, and that's where we will have had a completed feasibility study and some schematic designs done. And that is when we would need to do a vote with the town. So that's very forward thinking. It's very positive on my part, assuming that maybe we get invited in. They have shared, and you can get all of this information online as well, that the cost of that first phase of phase one, depending on the size of the school and the student body, and they will tell us exactly how many students we will be planning to build for or renovate for. But that first phase could cost anywhere between 1.2 to $2 million. And so we don't know what that could cost, but that's something that we would discover as we went through the process if we were invited into their core program process. So again, very much still up in the air, but we'll know by December.
And the outcome of the core program process, I believe there was a range of outcomes that if we were make it through phase one and further into the process, there's a range of outcomes that could result
Sure.
from that. Can you just kind of describe what that range might look like for the two SOIs or the one SOI that we think is going to be accepted?
Yep, absolutely. So I do, first of all, just to clarify that point, I do firmly believe that if they accept us, they will be accepting both of our statements of interest, not just the one, because you can't separate the two buildings.
Okay.
So as part of the process, we have to, in the very early stages, we would have to create a school building committee. That school building committee would consist of members of different boards in town, members of the school, community members, some teachers, and that board would sort of direct, or that committee would direct the process. And so as part of that, we would engage OPM and a design firm, and they would go through the feasibility study process where we are required by the MSBA to look at least 3 different versions of a project. One is just simple upgrades to systems and structures. Typically that includes all the things that you actually can't see. And so basically at the end of that first option, you have all new system structures and it looks almost exactly the same as it currently does, but it's updated and new. The other option is a version of an addition renovation project that they'll probably give us several versions of that we will look at that could involve, you know, renovation, tearing down part of the building, a little bit of build new. It all depends what the designers are looking at. And the third option that we would look at is a new build. And typically there are a couple versions of that we would look at. And then what happens is the school building committee would look at all of those options with a very specific rubric in front of them that is provided by the MSBA. And we would use that rubric to determine what option is the best option for the town of Cohasset in that moment. And then we would go from there.
All right, that's helpful. I appreciate hearing the range of outcomes from that. All right.
Just out of curiosity, Sarah, this is a good description of what goes on. It feels as though the school building assistance people are largely in control. And although we certainly will have a committee of our own, right? Their impact is only to review more or less what the School Building Assistance Bureau is willing to actually grant us. Am I right in saying that we're not in terribly, maybe we're in control at 10 or 15% or 20%, but it's 80% is going to be the school building assistance people on this thing. Am I wrong in thinking that's how this goes?
I think we have more control than that.
Okay.
I think they have control over the number of students we build for. They have control over the square footage that we can build. They have control over what are reimbursable spaces.
Okay.
That's the key.
Yeah.
We are in control of the design. We are
Okay.
also in control of, in some ways, where there's some ways that they're in control of the design, but having designed two different schools, there's a lot of say in the design from the district and the town. And then we are in control if we were to decide to build an additional space that was not reimbursable by the MSBA, but that we as a town said, but this is really important to us. We then have control over that.
Okay.
So I would say and maybe Molly and James, maybe 60-40.
Okay. That's 60-40. We're 40.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
If
Yeah,
I
I
could,
think
oh, go ahead,
Sarah-
James. Yeah.
No, thank you. I think Sarah was spot on. In fact, you could tell she's been through the process. That was very well said. Well done, Sarah. But to build on what she said a little bit, they have spaces where they have some things that are like absolutely they will not participate in or won't even let a project get off the ground. Like they just won't participate in. If you wanted a pool, if you wanted or a field house, those are just absolute no-goes. So they are directly impacting those. And then they have other areas of, a gym can only be so large. You can build up to a certain point, and so the conversation once you get there will be about, well, how much will the MSBA reimburse? You can build beyond this, but that's going to be 100% on you then. That's the way the conversation is going to be when you get there. So yes, there's control, and we have control too. Now it's just depending on how much do you want to pay, or on your own without their participation.
Well, typical ranges, therefore, of what they reimburse percentage-wise.
They will. So Cohasset, we already know based on the accelerated repair project, you guys are around 32%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's discussed with you the how they arrive at those. They come up with this percentage, this reimbursement rate for everyone in the state, and it's all based on the same formula. So it's based on economic factors. So there are others in this. It ranges between 30 all the way up to 80. Those are the max and mins. And so there are less well economically developed that are more in the 80%. But
I didn't realize that the accelerated number was going to carry through to the core. I thought there were different ranges given to accelerated and core, but it's basically because it's based on socioeconomic, it's going to be the same answer for both. Well, that's
Correct.
actually more information than we had like 6 months ago in terms of like what our reimbursement rate might look like.
Yeah.
Sure.
The other thing I think with a core project is there are a small number of options to earn additional credits for reimbursement. So if we were, I don't know the exact term right now because I feel like it keeps changing.
Energy
but like
efficiency. Things.
energy
Yeah.
efficiency, sustainable, LEED, silver, whatever it is at this point. All of those things can help us earn additional reimbursement points as well. And so that is something that when we're going through the process will absolutely be considered because the goal will be to get as many percentage points to get a higher reimbursement if possible. But the other thing to remember, and James referenced this, is that it's 32.47% of reimbursable costs. So if we have things that are not reimbursable, those are at 100% for the town. So sometimes the overall doesn't always end up looking like the 32.47, depending on where we land, if we're accepted in what our design looks like.
it seems like in the accelerated, you basically generally match your program to the reimbursable, but in the core program, when you're designing something bigger and more, I guess,
Mhm.
specific to the learning environment that you're looking to create, there could be non-reimbursable or other things that we value in Cohasset that aren't going to get grants from the MSBA. Okay.
Exactly.
If I could just add, one of the ways that you do have control over the process is development of your educational program. And so put a
Yes.
lot of effort into that, which means that that's the, like Sarah would put a lot of effort into developing this with principal and with the team. But you say, these are the values that are important to Cohasset, and the design is born from that set of values, and that set of values is submitted early on in the process. So that's where your negotiation can begin with the what's considered reimbursable. Like they have hard, like the others have said, they have hard rules, but some things, like they will not pay for bleachers, right? Never, they will not do it. But if you say, oh, we have this kind of new approach that they haven't seen before of an arrangement in the building, they will consider it because it's justified by your educational program. So I think that's just something to keep in mind, that it's not like they come in and dictate what you
Right.
need to do for your education. They're actually looking to you to say like, yeah, how are we implementing this building to better enrich our community and our kids? And then they can, work from there.
Yeah, I've used the educational program twice in both districts to get spaces that weren't typically allowed, and they were allowed.
Okay.
But just out of curiosity, assuming the more optimistic outcome insofar as the schools are concerned, for example, a December successful entry into the program, can you even project a timeline or specific, I don't know, targets of a timeline that say when do you get from point A, where you get admitted into the program, to some point where you ask the taxpayers for a hunk of money? I mean, that's the real question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we get admitted into the program, I'm going to think positively. There are two sort of go dates from the MSBA. One starts sort of right after the board votes, and then there's a delayed vote or a delayed start as well. Whichever one we are at, it's 270 days from that go date where the feasibility study and the schematic design are complete. So we would need to have funding to engage in that. And that would be the $1.2 to $2 million. And then from there, once you are approved at that next board meeting after that 270 days, you have, and Molly, maybe correct me, I think you have 110 days to get the special town meeting vote and then the ballot vote to get the rest of the funding for whatever the cost may be for the building project. And then it's, so it's very specific. They have very specific timelines. And then from a positive vote, hopefully, to opening, that depends on the building design that we end up moving forward.
So if I added those together, do I get 270 plus 180? Is that right? And then I get a year and a quarter or something like that?
That's not quite.
Okay.
She was great on the 270.
Okay.
And then the feasibility and schematic design, that's when you start getting the OPM and the designer on board.
Okay.
We usually take between 20 and 24 months.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
gotten longer, and that's to get us to the schematic design, where we will then submit a package to the MSBA saying this is what we propose as what the school will look like. Again, it's only schematic design, but it's getting them on board then to agree with a project scope and a budget. And then they release, they approve it, and then you have another, say, 3 years after that, where you're actually building and the school will finally get done. So close. Yeah.
I think we kind of got it, but it sounds like 5 to 6 years, right?
It is.
Okay. All right. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, if you got accepted, maybe, 7 years from now, you should have an open school,
Yeah.
That's something you could think about.
Okay.
School is open, yeah.
But phase one, we have 270 days from that go date to get the feasibility done. So that funding for the 1.2 to 2 million needs to be available. It sounds like there's ability to do a delayed go date, or do we get to choose delayed or not?
So they said when they were here visiting that we could request. I don't know that we get us to decide, but I think we could request if we
Okay,
felt like that was a better timeline for us.
okay. All right. All right, that's super helpful. And again, I think it was just helpful for the committee because we've got new members that haven't necessarily heard about the core program before. And we had access to you, James, and you, Molly, so it was just a good moment to sort of pigeonhole some of the details on that. So thank you.
Not a problem.
Great.
You want us to just roll into roof, or do you?
Yeah, let's roll into roof. I think the only thing that I would say to our committee that this is the presentation that leads to a vote in Article 5 for us, whether we do it tonight or another night. This is the project that's actually looking to get funding at special town meeting.
Yeah, so I'll just give a brief overview of sort of where we are, and then I'll let James and Nick and Molly do the heavy lifting. Because while I understand process, I don't know that I understand roofs quite the same. So we were excited to be accepted into the MSBA accelerated repair process. That happened in the spring. Once we were invited in, the MSBA assigned us an OPM, which is James, and a design firm, which Molly represents. And we all started working together. It was myself and James and Molly and Nick, and Sue Owen has been with us through it as well. And starting to talk about what the process will look like, what type of roof repair versus replacement we would be engaging in. And the timeline really, because the design has been submitted, the timeline is that we're looking to start the actual roof repair in the summer of 2026. And so we actually, I'm going to let them talk about the details, but what I did want to share is that we are going to be working with all of our summer programming in the near future to start talking about how that will be impacted, because at Osgood, we typically run an extended school year program through our special ed department. As everybody I think knows, Ted runs rec department camp at the Osgood, and there are a couple teachers who have some camps. So we've already started conversations with all of them, and we'll be coming together soon to have a real meeting about what that can look like. Alex Sullivan, the principal at Deer Hill, has already offered to host several of those things. So we're in process, and I think we'll be in good shape. But I'm going to turn it over to James and Nick and Molly to talk a little bit more about the actual process and what the roofs will look like. And then we can, answer any questions that you have as well.
Thank you, Sarah. I think if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to Molly and or Nick first. Molly, just to talk about the design, how we arrived at the roof restoration, and then kick it back over to me, or I might interrupt every now and then with I'll talk basically about the cost and what the number means.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
can,
go ahead.
I can start at least from a historical standpoint on how we got to where we are. So we started with a really robust roof repair program in 2019. So we started that, and we've been doing to these roofs what we're now seeing is we're able to do the roof restoration method, which you'll find out is newer for the MSBA to do, but not new in the sense of that they've been doing it on roofs for a long time, but it's gaining a little more traction lately because of the lower cost, and it's actually, in my opinion, a better end product, because they actually do a fluid applied method, very similar to the town library project that we did. We did the same thing on that roof. So there's no seams. There's a fiberglass membrane that's also put in there, so it's very strong. It ends up being thicker than the regular rubber roofing that you see on the buildings. So in order to qualify for that type of roof, though, you have to really take care of your roofs, make sure you don't have massive areas of wet insulation. So that's what our roof program has enabled us to do is we're coming into a roof that's 25 years old and it has minimal wet spots, so we can do this method of roofing. So it was kind of nice to see that MSBA was adopting this method because I heard that they were starting to talk about it, and it was like it kind of lined up perfectly for this project, and it's what we wanted because if we were going to be doing a full rip and replace, it's much more costly than what we're doing right now. So that's kind of the historical background on what we've been aiming towards. And then we got accepted the first try because we weren't able to try prior to this because roofs have to be 25 years old. They moved the goalpost on us a little bit from the last time. So it just lined up, and that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Nick.
So just to give a quick summary of the scope of work, like Nick said, for the MSBA, we're required to look at several different options. We don't always recommend coating as the best solution, depending on the condition of the existing roofing. But it's really clear that the facility's maintenance plan was very wise and beneficial because the roof is in stable condition, the membrane's in good condition, it's clearly been maintained. And you have some, in my opinion, really nice edge metals. So you have a lot of lead coated copper on the building, which is like a 70-year material. And so we're not looking, part of the benefit and the cost reduction of applying the coating is that you don't have to replace a lot of the flashings and the edge components that you would have to replace in a true rip and replace or a recover, and not to get too bogged down, but one of the reasons that the coating works as well and has become more popular is that, for a long time, we were going into roofs that were installed in the 50s, built up tar and gravel, all kinds of outdated materials. And now, if we're going to do a full roof replacement, we would end up ripping out a lot of insulation that we use today that hasn't lost its insulative value as long as it's dry. And that's the critical component, is that the insulation below the membrane is in good shape by maintaining the membrane itself. So to Nick's point, there's very little wet insulation. And part of the roof, if you imagine it goes like this, is kind of a bathtub shape. So the membrane we're restoring horizontally, but then the membrane also goes up the rising walls where there are clear story windows. So and this is exactly that kind of negotiation or presentation that you can do with the MSBA, is say, we understand that windows are not part of this ARP project. However, these are more like skylights that are integral and fully surrounded by the roofing system. So all of those windows have visibly failed. They have broken seals and are fogged up. There's some loss of interior light because of that. And so we proposed that those windows be included in the scope of work also, so that you're not putting this investment into the roofing system and then having something leak in the windows, which have leaked unexpectedly in the past. So it's a more complete system. The other thing is there is some HVAC and electrical work, because there are several small air conditioning units essentially that are set right on the roof membrane. Even for a coating, those have to be lifted to 8 inches above the membrane. And that being said, the good news is that the larger rooftop units can remain in place and don't have to be lifted and reset, which is a big cost. So there is those sort of costs beyond just the roofing restoration coating, which is, like I said, the HVAC, their electrical connections. There's a lot of boxes on those vertical walls. And then the windows. So that is, as opposed, there's another solution that we do that's lower cost, which is a roof recover. But in this case, the, based on the facilities department, wanting to prepare for this coating and like Nick said, from a maintenance standpoint, they prefer that it's seamless. And two, the amount of work that's gone into preparing for this is why we chose that approach.
So Molly, when you talked about lifting the units 8 inches off, the mechanism that's holding it 8 inches off, is that attached to the membrane and then the coating goes over it? Or
Good question. It depends on what we go with for a final detail. So there's something called sleepers where it's like a 8-inch by 8-inch piece of timber essentially that is laid on, well, you layer up wood from the deck and then you apply the membrane over it and then coat it. Or we can, and I think this is what we had proposed in the schematic design, is some kind of like stand that will, like a metal stand that will hold them. We'll continue to explore that as we develop the design.
okay,
But the idea is that they need to be lifted so that the coating application can be complete below them.
right.
But in any case, what you've done is tested all through the roof to find out what how much breakdown there has been and where it is, so that you're only really focusing on the area that's broken down to fix.
Exactly. So Nick's team has engaged Tremco, which is one of the main manufacturers. Like they had engaged them years ago to sort of start this advising process. Tremco will come out and they qualify the roof. They'll recommend repairs. The town has already taken care of a lot of those. And then we did another, they call them infrared scans, IR scans. And they essentially, they use a machine to detect where there might be water below the membrane.
Right.
I'm all too excited to explain the technical process behind that if you'd like to hear it.
I do have a question about just the Osgood roof makeup, because I think we're talking about the membrane, which is
Oh,
like
yeah.
the majority of it that you don't see when you're looking at the building. But when I'm looking at a picture of the building, there's basically what look to be sort of two sections that might be asphalt shingles.
It is.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the project does include removal and replacement of that shingle work as well with new architectural asphalt shingles. We did explore the idea of some metal roofing there, but it was astronomically expensive, cost prohibitive.
And just Molly, while we've got you, I looked back at the Tremco report and I think they said that it was like 25,000 square feet in total was sort of their estimate for Osgood. What's the split between membrane versus shingle work? Do you just roughly?
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I can find the answer. I'm looking at the
it's-
cost estimate right now. I don't see it breaking down. Do you know it, James?
Yeah, no, I don't, but just
No.
even looking at the size, it was, I would say it's what, 40, 60,
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the total was like 50 something thousand square feet, so the difference is,
Yeah.
So 50,000 square feet in total?
Yeah, I see about
it's a
20.
little over that, I thought, but yeah.
Sorry, yeah, it says right here in the estimate, which is just, takeoffs here, which is 25,000 about for the shingle roofing.
Okay.
Was the shingle roofing
And
a problem, or was it just time was it just because it's 25 years old? Because there's a very different.
and it's been
it-
having blow-offs.
Yeah,
go ahead, Nick.
it's definitely reached the end of life. Any decent windstorm, we're replacing pretty large sections of blow-offs at this point. So
Okay.
That
So I
are
guess-
written, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess the Tremco report was just referring to the membrane work, which is why I got the 25,000. So it was
Yes.
25,000 times 2.
Correct. Yeah, and I see
got
that it on this is the cost estimate. Like I said, takeoff, it says 26,400 for membrane roofing. So Nick was
Okay.
spot on.
Okay.
And again, you have the, like the initial original investment in that lead coated copper paid off because it's in good shape. I know it looks from outside like it's kind of irregularly patinaed, but it is in good shape.
Okay. Helpful.
Well, let me ask a couple of questions, which might be a little tougher. It struck me in reading through what you had to submit, and this is to the School Building Assistance Bureau, that they created a set of needs, some of which would be, you might call stretch code requirements, as I read it. And to some degree, created an expense profile, which seems very high to me, okay? Do you want to comment to some degree, to what degree, even though we're getting what, 1.9 million, I think, or something like that? We're getting 1.9 from the
Yep.
School Building Assistance Bureau, okay.
3.9 for the town.
Yeah, 3.9 for the same, 1.9. To what degree does that 1.9 really result from trying to meet stretch environmental codes or other sorts of things like ADA accommodations? In other words, it created a whole set of things as I saw it. Now you can say I'm wrong on that, but as I read it, I said by engaging and getting a grant from the school building assistance people, you also they will require everything from additional code requirements, OPMs, engineers, all kinds of things, which in many cases it kind of say, what if you didn't have all that? What would it really cost if in fact you didn't have to have all those requirements, which are driven largely by the school building assistance people? Now that may be a very harsh view of it, but when I read it and I see the numbers associated with that, what engineering and other things are costing, I'm saying, that's unusual for a very straightforward thing, except for all the other requirements you're now required to meet. So anyway, that's how I saw it.
No, we appreciate that view. No, thank you. I can, if you don't mind, I'll give you my understanding on a few of those. For one, the stretch code. The interesting thing is that because this is a roof restoration, this is kind of a little gray area at the moment that we benefit from. We're not having to meet, current energy standards. It's more like a repair that the MSBA is allowing. Whereas had we gone full roof replacement or recover, we would have had to have increased our insulation, and therefore what Molly was mentioning, all those edge flashings and whatnot. So this is saving a lot of work while still getting a darn good roof out of this, and utilizing an existing roof or the parts of an existing roof that really weren't that bad, that are still good. Really just the membrane and portions of it that are leaking, and we're adding a stronger membrane over top. So we've dodged the stretch code bullet. In Massachusetts, any public project, be it a roof or police department, over 1.5 million requires an OPM. So as much as you'd like to put that on the MSBA, it's unfortunately that's where they are getting it from. You need to have, so unfortunately you're stuck with me due to the cost. And the one thing I'll segue into this is that this number, because this is an MSBA project and because of the way the MSBA works, it's a reimbursement program. And they ask us to give us their scope and a project budget at schematic design. You've heard Molly say, we're going to explore more of this. I think typically you're used to probably seeing numbers come before you that are maybe, at 100% CDs or not, or 100%, ready to go out the door, ready for bid. And in this case, we're not there. So we've put in contingencies into the number that we've put before you, so that we are, because we don't have the design. The design's not fully 100% complete. We're on the right track, but we can't fully. And secondly, we have the MSBA now agreeing to this number so that when we go to bid, when we go through design, we'll see, by the way, we're going to have what's called a 60% CD estimate happening about a month and a half from now, Molly, maybe less.
Yep.
So that'll be a little temperature check to see where we're at, see if we're on the same path or better, and then, 2 months after that, we actually go out to bid, we hit the street. And that is always, there's no MSBA involvement. That's public procurement, low bid wins. The responsible bidder, whoever has the lowest price, they get the project. Historically,
James, am I
No.
right that the bid process is gonna end in end of January, so we'll know construction bid
yes,
end of January, beginning of February?
that's right.
Okay.
If it was a full replacement, about what would the cost be, do you think? A ballpark?
Probably double.
Yeah. Because you have to imagine there's, give me a second. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Let me share this.
Yeah, would have thought it would be 4 times.
Done to these 3 membrane notice. I understand.
Sharing it. Well,
Do
share.
do you need sharing?
No, I think I'm good. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So, all of these layers, all the way down to deck, the gypsum board, the plywood cover board, the EPDM, all of this would have to be just removed. So there's a demo cost and then replaced. And so we're actually just leaving all this in place and putting a nice thick, because all of that is relatively good. Let me show you this one here. Come on. This is that infrared we were talking about. The red,
Yep.
it's actually 211 square feet. It's less than 1%. That's fantastic. What they're judging it by is like, if it was up to 25%, it would still be a good candidate. And you guys are at less than 1%. So your roof is good, is what this should be telling us. And of course, all of this this is the shingles. That's what we were talking about. So we were trying to figure out what was the
Yep.
the size of the
I
roof.
forgot the back. That's, yeah.
Yeah, the back
Okay.
and the front match.
Yeah.
Like James said, you'd be looking at, because you'd have to meet new energy codes, you could be adding several inches of insulation. So you're raising all your roof drains, you're raising all your penetrations, your access door threshold. Off the top of my head, that I think the windows, you wouldn't have to change the rough opening, but it is much more costly.
So when you say much more costly, I thought you said that it would only be twice as expensive, which to me sounds like it should be much more expensive than that.
To be fair, we didn't do a cost estimate on the full
No.
replace to the schematic design level because we knew going in that it was
If
more
the
cost
problem is only
efficient.
1%, it sounds like to replace the whole thing is twice as expensive, and if it's only replacing 1% of the roof, it's just
Oh, no, you'd be ripping
Oh yeah, if you're
everything off.
replacing the whole thing,
Yeah.
you're replacing the whole thing. But I thought you were saying that the red dots were the 1% was the only part that was in trouble. I thought maybe I misunderstood.
I know that's correct.
Not in trouble per se. Well, let me clarify. The places in red is where there's actively found water to be underneath the membrane.
Yeah, moisture, right.
Exactly. So there's leaks that were happening here in all the places red. What we're doing is we're covering all of this in one monolithic coating. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not.
Yeah, I see.
Where all of this is one big massive coating of a new membrane, a new roof coating. That's going to go on all over that. And it's going to go up every one of these little HVAC units. It's going to go up those curbs that we were talking about, all of these little details. But it's going to, it's going to go over all of those to make sure water's not going to be penetrating from these locations either. Because, all of these are potentially we never think about it this way, but all of these are holes in the roof.
Yes.
You know, let the HVAC go through, and so they have to make sure that the new layer.
So why don't, it seems like, just to look at as we're looking at it, the left side of the roof, you have two red dots there. Why can't you just reseal the top above the red dots and not have to reseal the entire piece?
I think,
Yeah, I think that Molly, let me, and it's this EPDM, it has a shelf life to it. The rubber on it has a shelf life, and it's at its shelf life. So it may be good today, but tomorrow it's getting thinner and thinner. It's wearing. It's 27 years old, 28 years old. This rubber it's only meant to last maybe 30 years. So so that's why we could, you could, but you're pushing your luck. And the timing worked out that this was available to the MSBA to take advantage of the MSBA's program for a roof replacement restoration option.
and I
So
would
how-
say, that that's what Nick, and I don't mean to mention my name, I should call you by your department, Nick, sorry, but that's what they have been doing, is going in and monitoring where the leaks are, going in, replacing those areas and replacing the wet insulation. So you could, as a town, 100% consider just doing that in perpetuity until you have too many leaks to keep up with, or like James said, your roof, your membrane is at its useful lifespan. The materials below it are not. And that's the point of being able to, the restoration is to extend the lifespan of your existing membrane. And so if you wanted to continue to replace the small areas of insulation, it's no longer like a roofing MSBA project. It's not even really like a roofing project anymore. It's a maintenance that would go under sort of like your town maintenance budget, not a capital improvement.
Gotcha. So MSBA does not offer that to your point, they don't offer a pick and choose option. It's like you fix the whole roof via a selection of 3 options: rip and replace, recover, or flood. And
Yep.
we have the option to flood the middle and replace the shingles.
You got it.
Yeah.
That sounded right.
I have
And oh,
And we had already determined through the feasibility study that Osgood School and Dare Hill schools were in good condition, and fixing the roof was a way of protecting the building.
Yes.
Because it has a longer life to it, and we want to maintain that. Did you mention, Molly, how long the coating does increase the?
yeah, it's intended for 20 years. It carries a 20-year warranty. Some manufacturers can provide 30, but it's not publicly biddable because not 3 manufacturers will be able to carry it. And I also wanted to address just the question about the accessibility. That's also the accessibility improvements that you saw in the report and the cost associated with them. That's also a state law, not an MSBA policy. So the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, which is 521 CMR, requires that any project that has a construction budget of over $100,000, the building must be brought into compliance with certain sections of that code, which are namely accessible parking, an accessible route and entrance into the building, a first floor toilet room, a drinking fountain if they're provided, and a pay telephone if they're provided. So no one provides pay telephones anymore. So that's usually not on the list. But what we do is just an examination of, can I park and get to the building and get to the first floor toilet room, and do they comply with those sections? What we found is that just because of settling, like some minor settling, and the I guess the parking's kind of been modified over time, right? So when it was built, there were there were enough parking spaces allocated. Now we found that there's one more that's needed because some extra spots have been taken. And then the plaza was, having some tripping hazards and some minor things. The handrails didn't, and this, you can see in the aerial that there's the parking lot and there's kind of this ramp that goes up. It's actually a walkway. It's fine. It doesn't need handrails, but the handrails on the steps there are not compliant, and the plaza was kind of uneven. What we did was we went in big, like James was saying, this first budget is to establish our budget cap. But we can definitely, we've already talked about kind of reducing the level of invasiveness of that, because we know you have other plans for the parking lot and all of that. So I just wanted to clarify that that's also not kind of us haphazardly adding scope. It's to comply with the law and protect you against complaints with the access board.
I have a question relative to the budget cap, and James, maybe you can provide this perspective.
Mhm.
You know, we have always had a number of like $1.5 million in our long-term plans as being sort of the town portion of the cost of a MSBA roof project for Osgood. I think it was a bit of an eye-opener to see that the town cost is now, at least with this current scope and budget cap, at 3.9. So can you just walk us through how to think about that
Yes.
relative to how much, we obviously don't have construction bids, we don't have final design. You're putting a max out there because that's what the MSBA requires us to vote. But again, 1.5 to 4 million is a big jump for this community in terms of how we've been thinking about and planning for Osgood.
So a couple of things there is one thing that if I can put into your cap is we could have presented a lower number, but without the contingencies, for example, right? But then the issue that we potentially running up against is, all right, when we get to bid day, well, we're over that number. And so anything which the town would potentially pay for, but now you would be losing your MSBA participation. So anything over the number, the MSBA, it's 100% on Cohasset at that time. So that was the needle we had to thread, was providing, a number that we didn't have to go back to the well for once the bids actually came out.
The contingency is $240,000. So I hear you on that. And I appreciate the fact that we're trying to ensure that we're getting the MSBA grant against every reimbursable dollar possible. But I guess.
Yeah, there was actually, well, I mean, there is the construction contingency that we should carry in construction. That's the 239. You're absolutely right. But what built up, again, this number that was created was from, this is that schematic design. And so we had this is if we had gone out today, this is what the estimator thought the price would be. That I cannot really reconcile between what you thought was 1.5 and I guess this 3.3. This is what that's basically how these estimates work. Is when they're looking at this, they look at what it would cost, today, and then it goes and puts these additional numbers on it. Well, 10% design, because we're only at schematic, and then the general conditions for the contractor, the insurances, and then an escalation through the day of that estimate through the summer. So that's how we got to this number from 3.3, and we have these other things in here. I can tell you that, yes, it is a large number, but historically, we've come in under the estimated construction cost. These are schools where you can see where it was estimated at schematic design at 1.1, total bid was 7. It was 1.8, came in at 1.2. It was estimated at 3, actually came in at 1.9. Now, again, nobody can guarantee the future. No one can guarantee what the bids are, on what bid day are. I can only show you what the past has been holding. And you can tell here that we have not needed to go back to the towns for additional cash to cover the projects.
Okay. So, I mean, again, it's our internal planning that I'm not holding you accountable to that 1.5. I think in our minds, like, we thought the project was gonna cost a little over 2 million. You're saying that construction costs, if you had to, your best guess is somewhere between 3.3 and 4.8 in terms of construction costs?
That's right.
Okay.
I think I also, I was on the capital planning public side for a while, and it's very challenging to try to estimate a project pre-feasibility study.
Yes.
And what it's going to be, because the market changes so often. We have these professional cost estimators that put these together, and they have their finger on the pulse of the market at all times. There's prevailing wages, there are a lot of factors that go into it. And I just think that it's not, I guess I want to say that it's been my experience, it's not uncommon to have that sort of surprise, unfortunately, between what you were thinking it would be and then when you get the actual data back after the study's been performed.
I mean, at some level, it is what it is. If we want the 32% grant from MSBA in terms of how we think about it. But do you mind putting back up that number, James, just to, because I funnily enough, I was looking at that Melrose project. So it's looking like, I'm just trying to do the math. I mean, that one's coming in at roughly 70% of
That's
the
right.
estimated. It feels
That's right.
like,
That's in 2021.
I know it's in 20, I know, but I'm just trying to go from
Yeah.
the ratio of what the estimated cost was to the actual bid cost. I know these are dated.
And just speaking to the dated piece, the MSBA actually for 2 years didn't have an accelerated repair program. And so this was the last time the accelerated repair program was available. And
Okay.
we actually are part of the first one that they've had since then. So that's why there's no other data, because they haven't done it.
Gotcha. And what was I remember, and I'm remembering now that they had sort of called a hiatus on it. Was it just that they were getting too much subscription, or they weren't able to get through all the projects? So they basically had to call a timeout so they could get through all the approved projects. Why did they do a hiatus for a couple of
So
years?
the hiatus was because all of the core projects were in the middle of COVID. They were all estimated. They got there just like we're doing now, where we had a number that we went to the MSBA with. Well, all the core projects, now $100 million+ projects, they locked in with the MSBA, and then when they went to construction a year and a half later, they were all over their budgets. And so the MSBA, the MSBA, in order to help ease town pressures, they started whatever money that was allocated towards the accelerated repairs, they started funneling back towards those core projects so that they could alleviate the pressure on the towns who were over that schematic design that was decided 2 years ago, pre-COVID, before the inflation occurred.
And it was like 40% across the board inflation on construction, and
30% over 2
yeah,
years.
and it never went back down all the way.
Correct. It
Yeah.
never goes back down, but it
Right.
doesn't climb as quickly.
But it
Right.
has started to level off. If you look at their website, the core project costs have started to level.
We
No, that's-
also appear to be in a good bidding atmosphere right now, from what we can tell anecdotally in the office.
Correct.
Okay,
A lot of competition.
all right. That's helpful just to sort of see, and again, dated, but I mean, Ralph, it's sort of,
Well, you're using you're hoping
Yeah.
a 70%
Yeah.
number, but who knows?
I
Right,
understand.
that, right.
And
Okay,
I think
Okay.
I put this up, if you don't mind, since you guys look like you want to learn. We'll walk you through what I know. I want you guys to focus on this up here. So this is before the contingency use. So this box, This is almost, I don't want to use the word guaranteed, but this is one where they don't, when you start using the contingency numbers, that's where they look at each individual change order and they judge each one of those, whether or not they are going to play part of it or not. So and again, this number is the maximum, this is the maximum, if we're not planning on spending 5.595, we're just not, just based on the previous slide that we showed you with the 70%, on bid day. So we do expect your share to go down, but just to also remind you that they take away their share as well. So if it was $1 less, they're taking away their 32 cents that they would have paid you. Just remember that too.
Yep.
Okay.
So you operate in the five, I can't really see the numbers. Is it the 5,595,277 is sort of the number that you're most focused on managing? You're not focused on managing necessarily the contingency scenario.
Correct.
Okay.
If you get anything, I would say your rule of thumb on these projects, if you get anything back from the MSBA out of using your contingency, you're good. But I wouldn't be as a financial person counting on that as much as I would this number up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't have any other questions on the cost. I mean, at some level, we have a school stabilization fund that was intended to fund large projects like this. We have $2.6 million available. We will have the remaining balance available to us in fiscal 27 to pay off the remaining balance on the project. So we have the funds available. We may not like the number, but we have the funds available. But
My question is, if you have the funds available, I'm new on the thing, so I
Yeah.
don't know the rules of the game, but it seems to me that in the middle high school, you have a lot more serious problems that are much more significant than 1% of this particular roof, which is in trouble.
I mean, I'll let the schools address this, but my take is that the core program is a different beast, because the core program is going to require I think the lowest scenario on that one was a simple upgrades, which is probably a 50 million, like I'm guessing 50 million
Yes.
there. Revision or addition, we're talking about 150 million.
Yes.
New build is 200 to 300 million. It's sort of apples and
Correct.
oranges in terms of like the core program is 50 to 300 million dollars in terms of total cost, and the roof is been a known replacement with a timeline of like do it at 25 to 30 years, and that's been known for a decade plus on capital budget that Osgood was first up in terms of replacing the roof. Now, you're right, we haven't seen damage, but we're going to see damage.
Right.
Yeah, and I do
guess-
want to touch on that too. So from an operational standpoint, so you see those red dots and those are our wet insulation. What you haven't seen is that every single year we do a new moisture survey, which we are doing those repairs. So we are absolutely maxing out our operational budget for roofs. When they start to get thin like that, it's just you're constant. So you have to really, really keep up with it. Which is why we have this program, because if you just went 2 years and didn't really do any repairs, we would be having major issues. So the 1% is more a reflection on being proactive as
Yes.
opposed to the actual condition of the roof. So
That's
the roof is in terrible condition, but it's in good condition for what we've been doing with it, if that makes sense. It's at its life. It's at the point where this is going to sound ridiculous, but we get a lot of like seashells and crabs that the that birds drop on the roofs, and those are causing punctures. That should not happen on a new roof. Like it's very thin and delicate right now.
And Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but that image with the red dots is a moment in time
Yes.
versus what
Yeah.
really exists on any given day.
6 months from now or a year from now, that will be drastically different. There'll be new areas all over the place, and that's kind of what we do is we constantly are chasing those around. There's really nothing you can do about that. I mean, even a brand new roof, you're going to develop leaks. It is what it is, but it's
Yeah,
about keeping up with it.
I think what you're saying now, it wasn't said was, yeah, he's been working on this roof since 2019, repairing it. Is that what you said? 2019 was the repair program, so
Yeah,
yeah.
When we started the program, we did a massive roofing survey, and at that time, we were basically warned this is going to be at its life in a couple of years. This is in a tough spot. So, and now we're well past that, and we're into the borrowed time stage, but we qualify for this program, which is why we have been waiting for the 25-year mark.
So I just have a quick question. First of all, I want to say that I like the idea of replacing the roof. I think the town has had a history of not maintaining buildings appropriately. And if we don't want to have to be replacing schools all the time, I think this is a good idea. However, the amount to replace this roof of over 5 million is shocking to me. Now, I'm not in the business of like school repairs and stuff, but it just seems like $3 million more than I would expect. What is so expensive? What is the most expensive thing here? What's driving these costs to be so high? And I see the comparators for the other schools, so I know that the cost of other school roofs is high as well. What's driving the cost of these school roofs to be so high?
It's just the cost per square foot of doing the project. That's kind of a hard one to explain. I guess unfortunately it's not shocking to me. Just based on what we see with doing anything for a municipality, costs are exponentially more expensive. It's a it hurts inside to see some of the projects that we do and how expensive they are when you could do them cheaper, but we're tied by a lot of law. So, yeah, it's just a very simple formula. You can go out and get the cost per square foot of pretty much anything in any industry and rough things out, and that's just what this is.
Were the other example schools mostly asphalt roofing, whereas we have the membrane, the rubber membrane?
No, they were membrane.
They're membrane too.
Yeah, EBDM. Yep.
Yeah, I think we're kind of unique in the fact that we have so much asphalt for a school building.
Okay.
Yeah, and the comparables to James's point and Molly's point are from 2021, because that's the last time that the accelerated repair there. So the Melrose roofs, I think when I looked at that, like those Melrose projects were like 28,000 and 30,000 square feet. So they're roughly half of what we're gonna be doing at Osgood. And they were spending between 1.1 and 1.8 back in 2021. Flash forward 30% construction costs, flash forward double the amount of square feet. Unfortunately, it feels like the math gets you into the $5 million number.
The membrane is 26,000 square feet, right?
Yes.
The same as those schools.
Exactly.
It's the same number, right?
Right.
Right.
But we're having to also do the shingles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It would have been nice, actually, it would have been nice to have said, okay, if we did not in fact engage MSBA and said, okay, we have 26,000 square feet of membrane, we've got another 24,000 of fiberglass architectural shingles to put on, exactly based on those square foot numbers, what exactly would it have been if in fact you had done it that way? That would have been helpful. I know I'm not asking you to do it, but that would be an obvious first thing I would do. I would say exactly what does it cost per square foot And you can take the commercial prices and add them, add 30% for the, basically union wages is what you're being required to do. And exactly how does that compare? I'm not saying you should do it now because we have to get something done here, but that would always be helpful to know it and look at this a very different way. And you know, we've done that one time already on a building called the town hall. So we've done the very same thing there. And we find out we can do it differently if we in fact just simply say, what does it cost? What should it cost per square foot? I don't want you to do anything because I don't think you can at this stage. You've got an MSBA 32% grant, so, or at least potential grant, so we're not worth.
Move on.
We'll move on, that's all.
Okay.
We have a coating, so it's similar in that it's a restoration coating on a school building, that's going out to bid just before this one. So we might have some good insight
That'd be
on where
nice.
that comes in and comparable square foot price for that component of it.
That'd be
And
good.
actually that has architectural asphalt shingles too. So
Okay.
maybe we can get, kind of a good,
Get
heads
a-
up.
See, where are we, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Sounds like we'll have the comparable data from you, Molly, plus, I think, James, you mentioned a 60% CD temperature check coming up, before we go to construction bid, so whatever, Thanksgiving, December, we'll have a sense as to where we are, at least on those two benchmarks.
That's right.
I have another budget question, sorry. This is really about the, apologies, but the OPM and the architectural costs, which also seemed quite high to me. Are those fixed contracts where that's the amount that you guys will get paid? Or are you getting paid by the hour? And so maybe those numbers, have a little contingency or padding in them as well?
Those are the fixed contracts, lump sums, yes.
Okay.
I can tell you that at least for my fee, the MSBA requires a full-time site rep that's, for the construction. So as soon as, and construction is June 17th, whenever, the students are out, we usually start the day after, and it runs all the way until the weekend. We want it ended sooner. When the teachers get back is when we have substantial completion, but usually it's till, the end of August. So 2.5 months, I have a site representative out there monitoring the construction, making sure the details are being followed, raising any concerns or just monitoring and making sure everything's done. You don't, if that's a requirement, and I'm sorry, maybe that is not a requirement on other public projects, or even commercial projects. I don't think usually they just have the architect who goes out once a week, just to give you an alternative perspective. So.
Thanks. And also to clarify, you guys are, MSBCA has certain OPMs and architects that they work with. So you're like on their list of OPMs and architects.
Correct. Yes, that's the accelerated part of the program. Normally, public procurement, the Cohasset would have had to gone out and hired an OPM, spent that month or 2 months to do that, and then gone out and hired the designer, spent the month or 2 months. So this program removes that from the equation, and basically they already procured the OPM and the designer and assigned them to the districts.
So if we get invited into the core process, we will have to go through that procurement process and the hiring and interviewing all of the OPMs as the school building committee, deciding, whereas, the MSBA basically assigned us.
They play
Next level
matchmaker.
in RDA was an arranged marriage.
Yes.
So different process.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's part of the acceleration piece.
that's right.
Oh, sorry to
Thanks
sound
for that
surprised, but that's a
information.
great connection. I never.
Yeah, well, we always think it's
realized.
accelerated because you only got the 44 days in summer working days to.
Right.
That's the real reason.
Kathy, do you have any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
I don't have any other questions on my end.
I'm all set.
Move it.
All right. So I guess the question is, are we comfortable voting Article 5, tonight?
Why not? In other words,
Yes.
yeah, why not? Why postpone what you're gonna do anyway? Right?
I'm ready to vote. Does anybody have any questions? I circulated the revised warrant and with the informational summary late afternoon that just, added, there's the standard language in the article, which is required under the MSBA, no monkeying allowed. It's like, so we are going to have to vote at town meeting to fund the full 5.8 million, which includes the construction contingency. And then it lays out the fact that the MSBA grant is a maximum of 1.9 million under that scenario, for that 32.47% matching grant. So that's the language of the article, and the informational summary basically re-says that, but then highlights the fact that we will be using the school stabilization fund, the balance available to us now in fiscal 26, and the additional balance of 1.5 and change available to us in fiscal 27 to pay for the cost of the project. The only good news in all of this is that when we get around to truing this up, we will have obviously the actual construction costs and the actual MSBA grant. So we will only be paying out of school stabilization, the
Real
fine,
number.
the real number.
Of course.
Exactly.
The only scary part, to be honest with you, is that with 1.5 million plus 2.5% per year on top of that. And Deer Hill next, and potentially, depending on what we do with the high school, that coming back, we will not have sufficient money unless we start borrowing. So we're gonna start borrowing against our own special purpose capital stabilization fund, because you can't, the money just simply will not be there based on these kinds of numbers.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we are maxed out on the
Okay.
stabilization fund for
Right
the
away.
end of fiscal 27
Right
right away.
By the way, yeah. And
For
then-
feasibility program
Yeah,
hanging out there,
That's
Deer
right.
Hill
That's right.
hanging out there, which now, I think it's safe to say is gonna be
Yeah.
north of 6 million, maybe
then-
7 million.
and then on top of that, we'll have a multiple number of things that Nick will point out that we need to do on the schools in the interim. And although we've got our capital stabilization fund, the original one to do that, it really feels like we're gonna go short of money real quick.
Substantially.
Yeah, really. It is not a pretty picture right now. So
I
let's
mean-
hope this one comes in at 70%, but we'll.
I mean, the only good news I will offer is that we've accomplished the middle school, high school fire alarm, which would have been a real scramble for the town to
Yeah,
come up with
yeah,
that
yeah.
over $1.5 million, and we are able to do Joseph Osgood,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
after that, we're
Yeah.
gonna have to take a little breather.
That's around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right. So if we're ready, well, how to do this motion?
Yeah, how do we craft this motion?
Exactly. To see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds the sum of $5,858,522 for the MSBA roof replacement project for Joseph Osgood School. That work?
Do you need to identify the funding source? In this case, that the capital that is the special purpose capital stabilization fund? Do you have to name it or not in this case?
I think it's a good idea if you can.
Yeah.
Which, in other words, it's not a general capital appropriations and a capital.
As written.
I mean, right now, all I have is what's in the informational summary. I don't have the actual motion in terms of how it's going to be
Okay.
written, so I
Good.
can't, outside of the informational summary promising that the funding source will be the school stabilization fund, I don't have the mechanics of the motion, which are gonna say we vote 2.6, the exact number out of the school stabilization fund.
Yeah. Well, normally
Katie, in the draft warrant and the informational summary, it does say that the cost of the project will be paid from the voter approved school stabilization fund over
I
two
think you need to
years.
name it that way. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's fine, as long as we're comfortable, I guess all I'm saying, Ralph, is I don't have the
I
exact
understand that.
number that's
I
gonna come
understand.
out of the school stabilization fund at this special town meeting. I
understand.
have an estimate of what that is, but I don't have the
Just
exact.
naming the source, in
Okay.
other words, yeah, is all we're trying to do.
So, let me attempt again. A motion to see if the capital budget committee will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds the sum of $5,858,522 to be expended for the MSBA roof replacement project for the Joseph Osgood School. The cost of this project will be paid from the voter approved stabilization fund over the fiscal years, fiscal 26 and fiscal 27.
Fine.
It's okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay, sounds good.
Second,
Yes. I, Katie Dugan.
I, Rob Casemeyer.
Our dormants are aye.
Kathy Forrest, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye.
All right, thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank
James,
you, James and
Molly,
Molly.
Nick.
Yeah,
I know,
thank you.
I know we always poke and prod a little bit more than people want, but it is a process.
Happy
Okay.
to be here. It's a lot. I know.
Yep.
Totally understand.
Hope we
No,
help.
and it's actually great learning for us because assuming that we're gonna go through this MSBA process again,
Mhm.
with additional grant rewards, it's just helpful for us to ask a lot of the questions up front. So I really appreciate it. And Nick, thank you for all you've done in terms of working with these guys. I know it's been, a lot maintaining the roofs, but to your point, like, you can only beat the little Dutchman so long.
Yeah, yeah, and no, but this has been a great learning experience too, being our first, foray into the MSBA stuff. So I think going forward, we'll have a much better understanding of how things work. We'll be able to kind of have a better handle on costs going forward too, which will help us immensely.
Mm.
So yeah, be good.
Use the one that's there.
Well, thank you. Sarah and,
I'm staying.
we're not gonna let you go quite yet.
Yeah.
Because we've got the conversation about the electric bus lease.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
night,
you,
everybody.
Molly, James,
Take
and
care.
Nick.
Yep, bye-bye.
Would anyone else be promoted to talk electric school bus?
It looks like we've got, Jen, Corey, and Sue Owen in the attendees. If you want to promote any of them, Sarah, to join you.
You could you can promote them all just in case I don't have an answer
Okay.
for you, but I feel like it's fairly straightforward, but
Okay.
you never know.
It's from the same rules. Oops.
You go back on the other issue, I had, I have a slate a slate roof, a rubber roof, and an asphalt parts of the roof. And we went through all those this year, and, the rubber roof, it's 40 years old now. And it needed some repair, very minor stuff, like the 1% stuff.
Mhm.
And it was really inexpensive to fix, so. Hence my asking about why do the whole thing? It doesn't make any sense, but I understand what the logic is at the end of the day.
My house is all rubber roof.
That was
And
mine.
condominium is all that I have is also all rubber roof, and I've replaced them all. And I know exactly what it is. It's about a 40-year life. Usually it's solarization and seam failure. Usually that's seam failure mostly, usually at the scuppers. Often at those roof penetrations, that's where it actually begins to leak.
Yeah.
But they last a lot longer than the 25-year
Yes, they do.
typical warranty life. And it's solarization which thins them. That's what really happens. And eventually they get so thin that they have no texture left in them at all. That's really what happens to them. But anyway,
The seagulls dropping clamshells penetrate.
well, I'm on the sea.
Yeah,
I'm on the seacoast, okay, and they generally don't actually. Maybe they do somewhere, but I'm on the coast. I get more of it than anybody, certainly more than the schools do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Right.
Electric bus.
Corey?
Katie, do you want me to just start, or do you have specific questions? I can sort of explain where we are and what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think I laid out at least some of the facts last week around the request to move the electric bus appropriation to a diesel bus appropriation, but I think there were questions about the size of the fleet and how that's changed over time. And other questions that I think it's better, instead of me acting as school's mouthpiece, having the school
Right.
as a school's mouthpiece.
Yep. So last year we came to you with a request to renew our lease for 8 school buses plus the electric bus, and to add one more bus to our fleet. Especially because our Bluebird bus was failing and has failed. We also had shared with you our ridership numbers, and we were in need of going from 8 routes to 9 routes. Last year, when all of this happened and it was all approved and we were grateful, we felt like we were going to be in very good shape. And then we had some trials and tribulations with the electric bus. And that bus no longer, it didn't make sense for us to continue that contract. We had a lot of issues with the company that provided the service for the electricity, Enel, and decided with the town, with the I want to call them the Sustainability Committee, but I don't think that's actually the name, that it was
Alternative
time to
energy.
sever. There we go. Thank you. That it was time to sever that contract. So in the process of doing that, it left us short 1 bus. And we currently have 9 buses and 9 bus routes that are quite full. They range, especially for the elementary routes, from 51 students to 71 students. So our buses are still very full. But what we're running into is that when one bus breaks down, which we have actually had a bus break down, bus 8, the windshield wiper motor has failed. And so we are waiting for the part. It's supposed to be here today or tomorrow. But because that bus is not functional at the moment, we have to double up routes. So because we have no spare bus, if something goes wrong, we really can't provide the service to the students that we need to provide in the way that is ideal. When we have to double up routes, it means that students have to be dismissed early and miss instructional time in order to get all the students home or to school as we need them to be. Additionally, without that 10th bus, that 10th bus does a lot of our athletic runs. And without a 10th bus, we are having to outsource those athletic runs. So that 10th bus is crucial to our daily operation. And where we had appropriated the funding for the electric bus, we are asking that that appropriated funding be shifted to a lease for a diesel bus, so that our bus fleet can run as we had expected it would.
I went back to the memos that you provided us, and you go back to 2018 when we were running 6 routes times 3 tiers. We actually had 3 spare buses back then.
Yeah.
We dipped as low as 1 last year operationally, but we never operated a system with 0 spare buses before.
Correct. And I would say that we're even tight with just the 1, but we will gladly take just the 1 for this year.
The surprising thing to me was just, it seems to me that in the years, the number of students vary from 60 to 150 per grade, it seems to me. And it's varied a number of times. Every year it varies some. And I was surprised that that the ninth bus was really necessary, and that's all on it. And did you really reduce the did you improve the throughput, or how did you measure the value of going from 8 to 9? I think you need to have a spare. The issue
Yep.
really is the 8th to the 9th.
So when we went from 8 to 9 routes, we were able to reduce the number of students on each bus. What a typical bus can hold 77 students. And last year we had 3 buses that were very close to that number, 76, 75, and 72. That's 77 teeny tiny students with 3 seats to a bus, without backpacks, without musical instruments. The reality of students being on a bus is that students come in all different sizes. They have weighty backpacks. They are bringing their musical instruments to and from school. So having that many students on a bus is really, really tight, and actually not great for students and not great for our drivers. And so as we added the 9th bus, we now only have 1 bus route that is over 70 students. We have an elementary, but our elementary bus route sizes are 62, 57, 65, 71, 69, 62, 63, 51, and 53. So our buses are full, and that's with the 9th route. If we only had 8 routes, I think we would actually have more than 3 bus routes that were at that high 70 number, which again is not ideal for students. Our numbers are lower at the secondary level because more of those students either ride their bikes, or they get rides, or they're driving. But our elementary students are really taking advantage of the bus. We've also seen the number of our ridership numbers going up, because the more and more families are going back to work in the office, the less available parents are to be able to drive students. And so they're relying on the buses more than they have in the past 5 years, because during COVID, people were around and could drive their students. That's not the case anymore.
With the 9 routes, have you been able to reduce the minutes per route?
Yeah,
Because that was
good
the other,
Yeah, so
had
I'll
one
be
that had
honest.
50 minutes,
Yeah,
which was a
50,
long
52,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't gather that information for
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Right. Because interestingly, that 50-minute bus was not one of the ones was at max capacity. So we had 3 that were at 70 students plus, and we had 1 that had a 50-minute route last year. So.
correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, all the students don't all live in the same houses on the same line to
Yeah.
the schools, right? It'd be very convenient if we could just go from one end and pick everybody up. But
Yeah, could you fix that, please?
I'm going to send a memo around, see if we can relocate some people.
Exactly.
Well, without being facetious, but I'd acknowledge how difficult it must be, to be perfectly honest with you, to actually schedule with varying populations of students and various times. I think it's a tough thing to figure out, and I think that's really true. I was thinking to myself, and not to be flip, but it'd be desirable if somebody is out there is doing an AI program that takes into account all the variables that you're dealing with in order to actually do this. That AI program would help a lot in really sorting things out, as many other corporations are now doing to try to gain efficiency. And if I can find somebody who's got an AI program that does that, I'll find it for you.
You'd
Okay?
send it our way. I will
I'll
say
send
that
it your way, okay?
yeah, and
Because,
that might be something that comes out in the future. In the
you know, it's
meantime, our
realistic. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
oh, very much so. And
Oh, excellent.
Well,
we have a new transportation manager, Kim, and she has really we have a system, we have a transportation management system that does a lot of that. I'm not sure it's quite up to what you're talking about, Ralph, because that just hasn't come down the pike yet. It should. But she has spent a lot of time this summer digging in to all that system has to offer us. And so she's been able to do some things, but you're right. It is a very layered complicated process. That doesn't get any easier when a number of families don't actually register for the bus ahead of time and do it once school has started, because then you have to redo some of the routes and make adjustments. And, you know, some of our youngest students are already used to what bus they're on. So it is, you know, complicated by the human factor as well.
I understand, I do, yeah.
Right. And then you gotta layer in athletics.
Yeah.
and clubs
Yes,
and
exactly.
everything else.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No, the
Yep.
one thing I said last week that I'll repeat again this week, that by finally terminating the electric bus and moving to a diesel bus, it does give the schools more operational flexibility, because that spare bus
Does
Absolutely.
can go
go
out
further.
district,
Mhm. Absolutely.
so, and we have 10 buses that can go out of district, you know.
So can we go over the economics of this one more time? So when we do this reallocation, we return the other bus. I don't have my notes from last week because I'm not in Cohasset tonight. Can we go over the numbers again? What are we gonna get returned from the prior lease? And I think it was a year and a half worth of
34,000.
Yeah, so we had
coverage for
appropriated,
the future diesel bus, is that correct?
we had appropriated 50, 50 and 7,000 over the last. So we have $57,000 in appropriations that have not been spent against the lease.
Mhm.
If we repurpose for a diesel bus, we'll be utilizing $22,682. So that will result in a $34,318 reappropriation to capital budget at the end of this,
Present.
Okay,
34,000 and change.
great.
Michelle, were you able to confirm whether they accepted our?
So the final piece is we just have to provide them with the current mileage of the electric bus, because they want to make sure that we're not running the bus
Right.
prior to turning it back. So that one little component. And then.
Sorry, I don't mean to giggle. We're not running the bus.
Yes. I think we did.
we don't-
Without electricity.
yeah, but we don't have a guarantee that they've signed that.
There's no guarantee yet.
Not
no.
yet.
No.
Not
You
yet.
can't do anything until you get it, because then you get you gotta pay twice.
Right.
Okay, got
yeah.
it. I just say one comment, and I'm not saying no or anything else on this issue, but I wanted to point out to the capital budget committee especially that we have 150,000 approximately that we already put onto leases, roughly a little bit more than that. We've got now two approximately $25,000 leases, one for the 9th bus, one for the transfer of the electric bus to a diesel bus. So now we're up to $200,000 roughly. That comes right off of our $1 million. So 20% of our available capital stabilization fund, and this is the regular one, is reduced by 200,000 a year. That's a big change from what it used to be.
2 million is what we're,
I'm sorry,
2 million.
I mean,
Yeah,
2
no.
million down.
yes.
Well, 1 million of which, 2 million of which we keep and use 1 million, right?
So
Right.
we have been historically getting around $2.1 million in new appropriations from the town. So we keep $1 million balance,
that's
but
right.
we get 2 million funded to us at annual town meeting. So recently, we've been appropriating out roughly 2 million
I
a
thought
cycle. We did last year.
we did, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I misjudged it by 1 million.
yeah. I mean,
Okay,
it's your point.
By
is-
100%. Just put it in
yeah,
percentage.
please. Well, anyway, it's 10% of the budget right off, yeah.
Well, just hi Kathy, hi how you people. I'm Corey. Was on the capital budget for a few years prior. So when I sat this seat and opened up your seat, thanks for joining on. One point to what Ralph is referencing though is that the 9th bus lease was annual town meeting back in April. So that's not really that's already been appropriated. It's not a new expenditure or a new appropriation. And then the electric bus lease was also part of annual town meeting. So there's a $25,000 line item that was passed this year that then we just kind of be crossing it out and, you know, changing it to the electric bus in addition to the $31,000 of present value that we'd be returning to the fund. So you're not spending, there's no new appropriations out of FY26. It's really just a you know, a change of text. So if you're doing your math, the math was, this is part of numbers that were already subtracted.
Yeah.
Okay,
No. And I don't want to dispute things, but
Mhm.
I'll leave it.
What's your
Yeah.
question?
I'm just looking at the actual numbers that were used. There were actual numbers from last year.
Yeah, go on the first page.
I've got them here.
Yeah.
The other page has the 20.
But it does help for the carrying balance of the fund, and that you guys can reappropriate or capture back a year and a half of the electric bus lease if those aren't things that get paid. So it does fix a near term liquidity kind of available cash balance for you, since you've got new things for special.
So, project 18 was the 8 bus lease. Project 19 was the electric bus for 25,000, and project 20 was the additional bus lease. Those were the 3 that were appropriated at annual town meeting. I think that's all that we've got in terms of, but Corey, to your point, there's no new money coming out of capital stabilization. This is just a line item transfer of a previous appropriation. So
Right.
Correct. We're effectively giving the $25,000 back on line item 19, so we can get $22,000 to 24 for a diesel bus. So even for this year's cycle, the ask is again marginally lower, but it is lower.
So that when people look at the article right now, it's not super clear. But when we see the actual motions at the end of the month, in the actual motions, there's not going to be new money taken out of capital stabilization. It's just a line item transfer.
Right.
Are we ready to vote this? Yes.
Yeah,
How do you do it without,
but structure a motion that would make sense for us.
you have to have a contingency, right? Until you have
Ralph
a,
is saying until we have a signed agreement
You
with
can't
the
do-
electric bus company.
until you have one, you
Yeah,
can't do that. Otherwise, you're gonna pay them and pay this too. So,
You know.
So
So Michelle, when do you think that's going to be
Yeah.
provided
I
to
think
them?
I'll have an answer tomorrow. I just need to grab that mileage from Sarah, Sue, or Kim. And
we can
once we
get that
plug
to
that in, I think we'll have a response. So you can vote it,
Next Monday.
or you can.
Next
vote it
Monday, right.
Condition-
As signed agreement.
Yeah, conditionally.
Yes.
Preference?
Conditionally.
It's
there's
also
no-
money that we'd have to pay them. So we haven't paid them yet. It's on a cash balance, right?
There's no urgency, so you can do it next week. It doesn't change anything. But I do think it's wise to have all your i's dotted and your t's crossed on this one. I don't think it's wise to have a $32,000 obligation still out there and then a $25,000, a $22,400.
But if you make it contingent on it,
You can do that. You can do that, but you don't need to. The question is, what's the timing need? What difference does it make?
I don't,
Make it a clean one, right?
I mean, advisory hasn't voted capital stabilization. Advisory will likely vote capital stabilization on Wednesday, but the select board isn't going to close out and vote the warrant until Tuesday, the 7th.
Okay,
So
Monday's fine.
we will have given partial recommendations to advisory with our votes. So that's, but we'll have full.
I don't know if advisory vote, having that meeting on the books.
But
So if you could vote this contingent on the letter, I think it
that's
would,
necessary.
I think it might just be cleaner, so advisory can get a vote in, and then select board can close out next week.
Okay,
just, yeah, I recommend that.
Susan,
How would
It's
it
up
be
to you.
structured?
Susan, I'll make a run at it. People can correct me. Make a motion.
Subject to the termination of the current electric bus lease. Subject to the,
Suitable. Or anticipated.
Anticipated termination of the electric bus lease with Entel.
Or contingent upon, right?
Contingent,
Upon.
I make a motion contingent upon
Right.
the termination of the existing electric bus lease with Entel for the line item transfer
Let's do it legally.
from the electric bus lease appropriation at annual town meeting 2025 to a new diesel bus lease appropriation for the amount of $22,682. But good enough?
I second.
All in favor? Aye, Katie Dugan.
I, Rob Casemeyer.
Howard Dormitzer, aye.
I, Kathy Forrest.
hi, Susan Franklin.
Very much. We appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time and all the great information you provided in both sessions tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Okay. Sorry, guys,
It's okay.
I shut the agenda accidentally. I think it was public safety was next on the agenda.
Yes. Back here. Yes, public safety is up next.
So Chief Quigley is not here. He's under the weather, so
Okay.
he's not able to present tonight. So I don't know what the intent is for this evening's discussions, but if we wanted to have an open dialogue and I can take some questions down and get them answered for next week, happy to do that.
I have a couple of questions, so that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying yes, but not running the meeting, sorry.
No, I
Okay, it's helpful.
think that plus sort of perhaps envisioning at the end of it, what we're gonna do on next Monday. Because that is sort of at least one of the deadlines that's out there potentially for a vote or not on our part.
Mhm.
Yep. Kathy, you have the floor.
Yes, so first of all, Michelle and also Chief Quigley, who's not there, thanks so much for all of the answers to the questions that you supplied last week. There was one question that wasn't completely answered, and it was about the square foot per police staff versus other towns. And I do think it would be really good to have that information, particularly for Situate and Marshfield, as we've are we going to visit Marshfield? And also we had some nice pictures from Chief Quigley for Situate. They seem like comparable. To be honest, Hingham Police Station looked like it was better than Boston's police station. So I don't think we want to compare to Hingham.
Or Quincy's new one with the.
Or
statue.
Quincy's new
Oh, yeah.
one.
Yeah, we have the similar statues, I hope.
$10
Yeah.
million worth or $1 million worth of statues.
But, just a lot of the comments we've been getting have been about, is this oversized? So I think knowing what the square footage per staff person would be helpful for us in trying to assess that.
Sure, I'll work to get that.
Okay.
And I guess,
And the,
can I ask a question, Kathy? Cause I
Yes.
was thinking a little bit about your question. And the second floor of the proposed building is really the workhouse of where
Mhm.
staff is going to be doing the work today. I look at the first floor as a bit of a mix. It's really the chief office and training and EOC, but it's almost like, to me, the second floor is the workhorse in terms of the square. So I don't know how when you're asking square footage, are you asking for first and second floor police areas, or just the second floor where the work is happening and the majority of the police force is going to be housed? I don't know how you're thinking about it in terms of comparability.
I think the first and the second floor, when I look at the first floor, I see a archive room, I see a report writing room, I see the police chief's office. There is the EOC room, but I believe I thought in Situate they had an EOC in their public safety facility as well. So I think including the first floor would make sense. And the gym as well. I mean, the police are using the gym. There's a gym in Situate, so comparing, I
Yeah.
think comparing them
I think,
all. would be
Kathy, we would have to do it in a way that would be comparable to how the other towns would report their square footage.
Yes,
Meaningless.
yeah, I think we should try to make it as comparable as possible for sure.
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
to your point, Susan, it's more about comparability, I guess, than it is about how we slice and dice it. So we can ask the smart questions around when Situate and Marshfield give us their figures.
Sure,
Great.
I'll work on those tomorrow.
Okay.
And then the other thing was, I was reading the Cohasset Anchor article, and I saw that the selectmen are conducting a peer review of the project by an outside party. What can you give us more information on that?
Sure, yep, so with all the talk about the square footage of the building and it perhaps maybe being oversized and not comparable to our neighboring communities. The select board asked if we could have a peer review conducted of the spaces. So an independent designer would come and take a look at the square footage of the building and the necessary code items within the building, to see if in fact it meets the standards, if it exceeds the standards, if it is excessive, if there are rooms that can be cut, if there is square footage that is unnecessary. We're also asking them to go a step further, which is, tell us if in fact we were just to rough out some of these spaces and not complete them in totality, is there savings there? So we asked them for a few different things.
That's great, thank you. Have you hired anybody to do that yet?
So our OPM has given us names of 3 different companies. We've reached out to all 3. We've heard back from 1. We're hearing time is of the essence, so I believe we're gonna use this one that's given us a pricing proposal.
Would you be willing to share what that pricing is looking like?
Yep, so roughly it's about $10,000 to conduct the peer review.
And that will tie in well with the square footage analysis that you're asking for, so
It
that's fine.
Make a suggestion about all of this. When you're making comparison between towns, I started to look at towns and ask myself, and I asked Clark Brewer what he thought about it all. And he named a couple of towns, one of which is very obvious, one was Sutton. And what I asked myself was, how close is Sutton in terms of number of square feet of the total town? How many acres or how many square yards, how many square miles, okay? What's the population density? And then how many police there are. In other words, you really need to add the 3 factors. It isn't just one factor, it's all 3. Because population density determines exactly how many police you really need. Area says how far do they have to travel, right? So Sutton was one, Leicester was another, but I'm not so sure about it. But anyway, he had a couple of suggestions. Sutton had done a very good job of a program description. In other words, like our program description, however, they were very much more clear about each function, the size necessary, and then who occupied that particular. It's really well done. It was done 10 years ago, but in terms of programming, the programming document is better than ours by quite a bit. So it's worthwhile with that one. I don't know if about the Leicester one. I tried to get at it and I couldn't today. But anyway, Sutton is very close to us, Leicester is very close to us, now it's saying like, very strange, why do we pick those? But those have area issues and population issues which are identical to ours, which I think are really relevant characteristics, so. You start to go to Marshfield and other places which have 20,000 people and many more square miles, I mean, just, they're not comparable, but anyway. So it needs important, if a peer group is, or peer individual is gonna do this thing, they better pick towns which are really comparable, so.
Okay. Thank you, Ralph. Anything else that anybody wants to talk about before we send Michelle back out to get some answers?
I'll just to amplify one thing I had said last week and not to belabor it, but just give you a couple of numbers. It struck me that because the select board is going to ask for 17 odd million, something like that, from the taxpayers, in addition to the 10.4. Why are we doing that? If we have a bid of 19 million for the building itself with everything, furniture, fixtures, security cameras, everything, traffic light, the whole works is there. And you have about 6 million left from the original 10.4, roughly.
Yep.
You simply subtract 6 from 19, you get 13 million, right? If in fact you were being conservative and not touching any aspect of the building whatsoever, 13 million is what in fact would get that building done based on what, and using the money we already have. And so the question is, what is in fact the additional borrowing required for that? So somebody could work that out. What's the amortized cost for a 3.5%, 4% borrowing? When in fact, if you look at what we in fact are borrowing, or we are paying in the way of debt service now, which is about 700,000 this year, it drops to 200,000 next year. We already have 500,000 of unused borrowing capacity if you want to use it for that purpose. If you can get anywhere near close to that, then the town can really afford that. If in fact they don't use that additional borrowing capacity for something else, right? And that's all I have to say. It would get this job done, as what I said last, in the event this does not pass the way it's going in the town, at the town meeting or on the ballot. It is a easy way to get it done and really to get it done. So anyway, that's all I'll say.
I guess I'm not quite following the math, because the way I was thinking about the math, we weren't subtracting the 6.3 million remaining from the 18.9 million of construction, but it was in addition to.
Why?
Because the construction bid doesn't have in any of the FF&E and all of those other items that we listed. Probably.
Their furniture and fixture and all that stuff is not there.
But also, right, the architectural and design costs, which have,
They weren't there?
Yeah, so.
I thought we had spent.
Sorry, so here's the bid number essentially, and we have to add in all of these costs.
Yeah.
And we only borrowed the $2.4 million to date for the building, we haven't borrowed anything else.
I understand.
So that's,
But-
that's why we're saying that plus that would be the
Yeah,
total
but-
borrowing.
I understand.
So that number quickly escalates when you start adding all of those things back into it.
$750,000 for traffic light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hello,
I,
this is Norman. I saw the cars.
okay, yeah,
So-
right,
so-
ongoing meeting, thanks.
No worries.
I mean, the way I was doing the math for the total cost of this project was the incremental ask at special town meeting of the 18.373 million plus the 8 million from the previous borrowing, of which 1.7 is currently banned and 6.3 is unspent. gets us to 26.373 million.
Mhm.
Plus the 2.4 from the cost of the buildings, gets you to a total project
Thirty.
cost of 28.773 million.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's really, I agree on that.
Yep.
Approach.
that's how we walk it.
So it's a $28 million,
No matter what you say,
Project.
it's $28 million.
that's,
Yeah,
that's what we're being presented with right now.
the total cost.
Total cost of which we've spent 2.4 on this building and we have under ban expenses of 1.7 million, which is 1.3 million for architects.
That's what I thought. I thought they wouldn't pay for it, right?
Yeah, 300,000 for scanning of digitizing and OPM 110. So we've
We
What-
paid, we essentially have included those already. So we still had 6 million left after that.
yes,
Right,
Right,
That's what I thought.
6.3.
6.3, yeah.
yeah, right.
And then with the debt schedule that,
The way the town was approaching this was, I think, was that if we're having to ask for another 18.373 million,
Right,
we might as well re-ask for the 8 million that, or when we're talking about the total cost of the override, we need to include the 8 million that hasn't been,
yes, for total picture, because it hasn't been borrowed yet. So
Right.
if we just go to the taxpayers and say we want the 18, I don't know,
373.
18,373,
Right.
it's not a total picture of what
Of
the
course not.
tax impact will be,
Of course not.
because we're forgetting about the other $8 million. So when Chris gave us that calculator based on the median household, what he did is he calculated the 18 plus the 8, and then because we're already borrowing the 2.4, he added it all together.
Yeah.
So that's where you get your tax impact.
so the total impact will have gone from what was approved in special town meeting 2023 of $220 per year for 30 years to a total cost of 534 million for 25 years is the new number. And that includes that 534 per year includes 5350 for the cost of the building, plus the 8 that hasn't been bonded yet, plus the additional 18.4. So one of my suggestions to Chris was doing a little bar chart to show like what's changed, but basically we've gone from a proposed $220 over 30 years to $534 over 25 years. And there was a rationale for 25 versus 30, basically because of savings of interest expense. So you shorten the time frame, but yeah. That is the increase, but the numbers are big.
the numbers are big.
Numbers are big. I mean, I am still getting questions. I know we've talked about it and I know you've shared this whole concept of alternative sites and I am not personally in the camp of reboiling the ocean. But the question keeps on coming up of, and you asked this, Kathy, what happens if we were just to sell 62 Elm, sell this site and go for someplace totally new? Are there,
Yeah, I can appreciate that question because it comes up quite often. But the reason we landed on this site is there are no other sites on 3A that are advantageous for a public safety building.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've looked at the Esposito property, we looked at Red Fox Lane, we looked at Crocker Lane. It's just, we don't have this landmass that's not wet, that's not, right, along 3A, which is the challenge.
so maybe it's as simple as like getting and I'm not suggesting we throw this out on social media because I think people are getting a little bit. People want information and yet they feel like they're being sold something right now, so we're in this weird place, but for a public forum, if there was a way to express like what the town has looked at in the past, so that people know that that work has been done.
Sure.
Literally a board with the 6 acres for, the Esposito, the 1 acre at Red Fox Lane, and the Crocker Lane one, which is a terrifying prospect of having.
Or purchase of a piece of property. Or purchase, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
or purchase.
yeah, purchase, right? We bought a building at 2.4, right?
Yeah.
Purchase, right? Land.
Yeah, I think the
That's
question.
obvious answer, right?
I think the question is, Michelle, is there, I mean, I know 2 of those pieces of property the town also owns. Presumably the town also looked at purchasing.
We looked at several different properties along Prairie. We even looked at the site next door, to purchase that. So, I mean, we've looked at a lot. I don't know if there's any other properties that we haven't looked at. I think what would be helpful, and I agree, is printing out a map and showing the entire 3 acres.
Yes, that would
And
be
pinpointing what we've looked at. Ultimately, the best places for the public safety building are in this area. And aside from Stop and Shop or one of those larger places, I just don't know that there's a spot. But I mean,
I think the 3A corridor exercise is probably a good one.
Mhm.
It's just, I look at this and I say this. Oh, forget it. You know what I think? This is trying to make something out of,
The sow's ear.
yeah. Yeah, soap purse out of the sow's ear, right? Yeah, that's where we are.
And Michelle, what was the problem with the lot that's, I know, you know, it's not for sale, but the lot that's adjoining 135 King?
so
Why was-
149 King Street, Kathy.
Yes.
I think the reason the town at the time steered away from it is there is a cell tower, that you have to maintain access rights to. However, the prior owner receives, I guess, payments in perpetuity for having that on the lot. So you're now maintaining a roadway and maintaining access to a cell tower that you're never gonna get the benefit from. So that was challenging, and I think the town just wanted to stay away from that.
Okay.
I mean, it also has the same site. If we're talking about the Matt Shannon land to the right of where we're sitting, that also has,
That's the hill.
it abuts the hill. It has the same site, like
So the-
alteration
Limitation
issue,
challenges.
alteration challenges.
But I think the reason that we stayed clear of it was the cell tower and maintaining rights and access rights and road rights in perpetuity for someone else to get the funding from it.
It's more land. It's contiguous with this, but it has the same excavation issues.
And you'd be closer to Dunkin' Donuts and it's impossible to get in and out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering about, could you put the main fire station there?
Yeah.
But you would, when you look at the current building on the land, there's obviously no way to do that. There's just not enough land. But if you could push into that next lot, maybe you could do that. Now, that's obviously a very expensive project. I see Ralph is like going, oh no. But it would get both fire and police in the same place, in a place that makes more sense to me than in the middle of the village. But I don't know how you would get that land. It's not for sale.
For sale, and they've already pulled their building permits for the storage facility. We were in discussions with them about the site work, because if they're going to do all the site work over there, is there something they can do to help us over here? Until they actually break ground on that project, it's all just, it doesn't mean anything yet. And if we don't receive funding for this project, it certainly doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But Kathy, if there's any other questions, you can just shoot me an email and I'll try my best to get answers for you.
I think the other
Great, thank you.
huge question is really the fire department even now has trouble fully staffing Elm Street, as you know. And when we walked through it, they talked about getting down to 4 people sometimes and hopefully 6. And yet, if you have to have a station up here, you have to have 4 people full-time all the time. So I think factoring in the rest of the cost has not yet occurred. Because there's no way we're gonna staff both those stations full-time with a minimum of 4 people at all times. And even he says it in his own notes to us, so. There's much more at stake here, much higher cost than personnel costs than we are being shown at this stage, so.
I keep on rereading this response, to be honest, Ralph, in that.
You ought to read it, because I think it
Well,
highlights that.
I've obviously read it and I've marked it up in pink, but like. My understanding from what Chief Dockery said to us was that he was going to split his existing staffing.
Mhm.
Half here to have ambulance 1 staff and half at 62 Elm to have ambulance 2 staff, or however he splits the ambulances, but he was gonna split his existing staffing. Half here and half Elm Street.
He doesn't have that staff.
He has,
He doesn't have that staff. We walked through and they said specifically, they don't, sometimes they're down to 4 people.
Both statements are correct.
but both statements are correct, like I heard him saying that his ideal staffing is 6, but he's often down to 4. In
Right.
my mind, that meant he was sending 2 up here and 2 down there.
Well, 2 up here doesn't run anything because it's only the ambulance,
Sure.
but he's got a fire engine up here. They always send out, if you
It's a
can't get,
standard response.
your standard response is 4. Because if you're going to say, I have the advantage of being on this side of the tracks.
Yeah.
You have to have 4 up here.
And maybe I was just thinking ambulance, so that's why I'm splitting the 2, like.
Yeah.
Your point is valid, if you have an engine up here, you've gotta have staff to.
They always send a fire engine with the ambulance, always,
Pumper.
a pumper or whatever.
I understand, but you could send an ambulance from 135 King, and on the same call, you could send an ambulance from 135 King and an engine from 62 on the same call.
So now you're saying, okay, it's really okay if we come a little late, right? And we can, or maybe the train's in the way. In other words, you can make the same arguments they've already made. In other words, so if you don't make this a fully functioning fire station with an ambulance and an engine, then in fact, you've only got half a loaf.
I would say that what we need to do is ask him for clarification.
I think.
You can't clarify.
I can't clarify it, and Ralph can't clarify it, because I think we.
Oh, I definitely can't.
Oh, it's for the chief. The
Yeah.
chief should be able to answer that.
So difficult to staff.
Staffing plan, a real staffing plan, 24-hour.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Ralph.
We'll get clarification.
Okay.
I mean, I did want clarity on sort of the breakdown of some of the site excavation costs, but it feels like moving deck chairs on the Titanic, like, to be honest.
Mhm.
We can break them down. We should break them down.
Break them down in one way, like.
My question was really like, we're excavating for the parking lot and we're excavating for, I think on the left side for fire. Was to really, because in my mind, like, if we ever got to the decision of not doing fire, like how much are we gonna save in site excavation? Maybe that's already in the 3.5 million that's been bannered around as savings from not doing the fire annex up here.
I'm not so sure about that. So
Okay.
I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause the 3.5, maybe it's just the building savings, and then there's additional site savings, site
Mhm.
alteration. So that's why I was trying to split the
Yeah,
alteration
right,
cost
right.
between what was for parking lot versus structure.
But
What-
part of it was remember the access point that they used, I forget what the term was, it's the way to get people in and out. That if you, in a safe way. To, bring in somebody that you're going to,
Oh,
it's
Sally, the
Sally-
Sally.
Sally.
That's on the
Sally.
right side that I don't
Which would
think,
be, that has to be excavated, that.
we have to excavate it on the right
Yeah,
side too.
yeah.
Okay, so,
To
That's the
excavate on
big
the
part.
right side, so you can fit the
the
Sally
big
port,
part.
and then there's parking behind there.
okay,
Yeah.
so excavation for
The Sally Port.
Sally, the police.
And the ancillary
Yeah,
garage.
Sally.
A 3 garage.
In the garage next to the Sally Port.
Okay, I didn't, and,
But we'll get a breakdown.
okay,
They should be able to give us that.
So, you know, that's not a clear story bay, only the garages, they've added on in the back.
Mhm.
Second floor, more offices,
yeah, no,
yeah, right, in addition,
they built it up.
yeah, they built it up.
Yeah, they utilize on the second floor, whereas in the fire department, they can't,
They can't.
because it has to be.
Right, has to be double height.
I mean, from what I remember on the second floor of basically the back of the police annex, it was more conference rooms. So, yeah, I know, it's all right over there, sorry.
Might have that somewhere too.
Yeah, it seemed like something where maybe that could be roughed and not like finished. I'm not sure how much money that's gonna save, but.
Yeah.
I think part of the peer review will help us identify, those types of things. If we build this building, what can be roughed, what can be done later? What the cost savings potentially would be now versus long-term, short-term. So I think that's something that they can help us with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all good questions, so we should go from it.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, I keep on coming back to, with ambulance too, it's a crime that we have a $500,000 asset sitting out in the open air. Like, we have to find of all the fire things that need to be solved, like that, having a $500,000 asset that's just like getting pummeled by rain and water. And then there's spin up time and response times when we need it that are a collateral damage.
But Katie, if we didn't do the fire annex in 135 King, but
Yep.
did have the police move, wouldn't there be extra garage space for ambulance too at 62 Elm?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that's a great point, Kathy. And what we've heard is that the garage is not tall enough to house an ambulance.
Yeah.
So it would be,
Garage at 62?
yeah, so one of the
Really?
garages at 62 wouldn't be tall enough, so it would be a modification of the garage to get the height needed for the ambulance.
Yeah.
I believe that's what they're telling me. I'd have to
Right.
fact
I
check
think
that
better
though.
check that out. That was an argument why they didn't continue to use the water department garages. That's where that came
Yeah,
from.
because.
Because we're talking about the garages that are next to the evidence locker, the police, those two
Those-
bays, that's where you would put ambulance too. Right now, there's tires in it and the UTV vehicle in there, it's
Which we
pretty
could
low.
Which we could easily dispose of these days.
I know,
right.
that, it feels low to me, but again, I'm not good on spatial judgment.
Well, they had to buy a new one because it was so low. So,
Right. Yeah.
anyway. Anyhow.
Okay.
But anyhow, yes, the garages are possible, or the it's a Quonset hut.
Quonset hut, yeah.
Back
Yeah.
there.
I think it has to be in a tempered location, isn't that part of the argument? It has to be in a tempered location, the ambulance, for it to be,
Because of the supplies, you
Yeah.
can't have it loaded with the supplies unless it's in a
Oh, it's
climate.
secure.
It's secure and climate controlled, I think are the two,
Hmm. Hmm.
Cause you can't freeze stuff that's on it. Can't-
saline, you don't want to be you don't want to be warming up the saline before you're pumping it into a injured body.
but we can ask about the garages.
Yeah.
Yeah, can ask about it.
And if it's less costly to renovate a garage versus
Mhm.
building a station.
Sure.
I mean, I think we keep on coming back to this, like, I think that the thing that I'm struggling with, frankly, is that these are all fantastic suggestions and I ultimately agree with them, but I don't think it's gonna add up to more than $5 million. And so is the town even at a place where going from 28 million down to 23 million is going to
Solve any. problem.
solve problems? Like, I think the attempt will
It's
be well
good-
received.
It's the good faith attempt.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what
just the due diligence, yep.
That's what it's about. It's not necessarily just money, it's good faith,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
As long as people feel like the good faith attempt, because that's why I keep on going back. I know there's a lot of anger over the 10.4 million, but there is no way this project is getting squeezed back into that box. It's not even getting squeezed back into a $15 million box, let alone a $20 million box. I think we're in that $20 to $25 million range realistically. And if a good faith effort to show how we could get there is going to win the day, I'm all for it. But if the town is still stuck on 10 to 15 million or 10 million, like, there's just no hope.
No, but what we're trying to do is to give the town a reason to be unstuck on that.
Okay,
That's,
Mhm.
okay.
does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure the town is there, but I understand the exercise. And no, and I do think the good faith is important. I do absolutely agree with that.
It's critical.
Yeah.
You know, so,
It's our job.
yeah.
So it's 9:15.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Well,
Do we want to get the minutes done or want to adjourn?
We can move the minutes.
We can move the minute.
Oh, sure, move the minutes. Yeah.
and part of the reason I'm trying to keep the minutes up to date, besides the fact that it's a pain in the ass to vote a year's worth of minutes at the end of the year, is that we do have people in the public that are looking for this information, and so the more we keep our minutes up to date, the better.
Mhm.
And we've got Leontina who's been awesome at generating them on.
And there's some rules that the clerk will tell you we're supposed to have done.
Yeah.
done them
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So we have a set of minutes from September 24th, that are before us. I think everybody can vote because we're all here.
yeah, want me to move those?
Yeah,
Move the minutes of, September 24th, was it?
yes.
Yeah, okay, move the minutes to September 24th. I guess you have to ask if there are any.
Any modifications?
Right.
No,
Nope.
All right. All in favor, aye, Katie Dugan.
Hi, Rob Casemeyer.
Art Omenauer.
Hi, Kathy Forrest.
hi, Susan Franklin.
So we have to vote we don't have to vote electric bus, so we just have public safety as a potential vote.
Yep.
Is there any interest in having a conversation about the capital stabilization roll forward or roads and sidewalks, or do you want to push that to later? I don't think it has to happen. It will be available.
There's no motion, right?
No, there's no
Yeah.
motion. It's more informational so that you sort of know what our ending balance look like officially for fiscal 25 and where we're headed, but it's not necessary for sure.
In writing, it'd be terrific. Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
in writing, and then we discuss at
Sure.
a future
Sure.
meeting.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You're gonna say something?
I just have one question. So for the public safety discussions next week, should we ask the chiefs to come back? Do we want the designers, the OPM? Do you just want the chiefs? Do you want Chris Senior, the town manager? Who would you like here? So we can,
Yeah.
you know,
Tied up.
try to tie it up if we can. If there's more questions, well,
I think it's definitely the chiefs.
okay.
Oh, look at me, I'm not here next week.
You're not here. Okay. I think we're substituting Chris for.
Chris is coming.
Chris is going to substitute for Rob next week.
Mhm.
To me, it's the chiefs. I think having Chris Senior here,
yeah, that'd be helpful.
yeah.
You won't have the information from the comparable guy. He is not, that's not gonna be for.
We haven't even signed a contract with
Not
them.
even, that's like at least two or 3 weeks away.
About 2 weeks
Yeah, after you signed it.
after we signed it.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of key.
So we can at least get these questions answered, the square
Yes.
feet per person.
Man, I feel like advisory hasn't voted, we haven't voted, and select board. So we're all sort of staring at each other, who's gonna vote first?
Would it be helpful to have a joint meeting with advisory on Monday? So you can all hear the same things at the same time?
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea, and it would
Yeah.
save the chiefs another meeting
Yeah.
if.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
And we can ask.
Yeah. I mean, unless they're planning on voting on Wednesday night.
They haven't even been presented the information.
I would ask anyways,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
or I
I'll
would
do that.
propose that.
Yeah.
Great, all right.
All right then.
Ralph,
See everybody on Wednesday, mostly.
this one.
Yeah, this
This
Wednesday,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, tour.
Chris will be there
Build-
too.
Yes, Chris will be here. I think it's everybody but,
Alrighty.
everybody but Susan, on Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
On a motion?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second, yeah.
All in favor?
aye.
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 Okay, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Meeting.
Bye.
Somebody gave
Good
me.
evening.
How about
I think
yourself?
from,
Okay.
Michelle.